Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and we are doing everything we can to survive without Survivor and without ever talking about Big Brother to make people happy. That is our goal.
Never mentioning it.
Never. It doesn't exist. Whatever anybody's talking about, it's not a show that actually exists. We are back. We are now the Surviving Without Survivor Specialist. That is our goal. That is what we're trying to do. Total rebrand. The only time in the history of time that it's actually okay to rebrand yourselves. And we decided, so we asked our patrons, we said, what do you guys want to hear? And I forget who it came from exactly, but they said, do a Disney rewatch. And we were like, all right, that sounds good. So we picked 10 Disney animated movies. Hey, this is only the first in a series, but 10 Disney animated movies. And we're going to go through them and just talk about them and have some fun and hopefully bring some joy to all of you too, while we wait around for Survivor to come back. Alexa, we have other things going on too, though. So I don't want to just hold it to only this. Like, let's not undermine ourselves.
We have a lot going on. And kind of like you said, we only picked out 10 movies, and they're spanning Snow White, which is one we're about to talk about, from in 1937. And over the course of these 10, we're really hitting far into the 1900s and possibly the early 2000s. So as Phil said, we only have 10, but there are way more than 10 Disney animated movies. So if you guys are into this, if we're not talking about one that you want, send a suggestion our way. You guys know how to tweet at us. You know how to DM us on Instagram. But if you do need the Survivor itch scratched, we polled our patrons. We actually did a little rewatch bracket of which season should we rewatch, since there won't be a season airing this fall. And the votes are in, and we are going to be watching Survivor China. Phil, how do you feel about that?
Pretty amazing. Thank God. Somebody, I think it was Celestina, was really trying to push for Fiji because that's her favorite season, because man, she is crazy. But she was trying to push for that. There was a coup to try to get One World to win. We did not rig anything. I can show you all the results. It ended up being Survivor China versus Tocantins in the finale. Survivor China pulls out the win, thankfully. Good thing. So we have that going for us. We will be talking about that. Spencer,
that movie might come up if we run out of time.
I don't know if that's the right thing for a Disney podcast, however, but hey,
these are our like side podcast. We have a whole other one.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Survivor China will be coming. If you're not a patron yet, we've been putting out daily Survivor content. I've been putting out daily content right now. Once I'm done with that, Alexa and I have already started pre-recording a series that we're going to be doing for our $20 patrons, probably starting sometime around mid-September. We just we're waiting until Russell's top 100 is done, and then we're going to start doing it. But I've been putting out daily about a 10-minute episode about who is on my list in my top 100. So if you want to, follow along with that, it's been really, really fun. I've really been enjoying it. And so that's what I've been.
10 minutes. You were doing 15 minutes, I thought.
It's been about 10 to 15. It depends on who I'm talking about. There's some people I have a harder time talking about. There's some people I have a really, really easy time talking about. But every day I've been going through one. I just did my number 39 today. Don't want to give anybody a tease on it because I haven't revealed that to anybody except the patrons. But if you want to find that out, that's $5, $10, and $20 patrons. But what Alexa and I have already recorded, which is a best episode of the show bracket, based on what our patrons actually voted on. We're going to be putting that out later. We have different criteria for each round. It's really fun. So that's a great time to be a $20 patron. And Jordan Alford always saying what I like to hear. Phil has been really insightful in his daily episodes. Damn right I have been. All right. So Alexa, we're talking. Is there anything else that I missed before we get into what we all came to see, which is us discuss a man with a giant beard who's almost 30 years old, and Alexa discuss Snow White and the Seven Dwarves?
I'm super excited about this, which is something that I say all the time. So maybe now that we're rebranding, I'll rebrand I'm super excited to tell you guys what we're doing. So maybe we'll just come up with different taglines too. That'll help. Maybe new intro, whole thing. But so Phil picked out this group of 10. He sent it over to me. I vetted it. We kind of went back and forth, but Phil is obviously the movie buff out of the two of us. And Phil, before we went live, said, I've seen Snow White 100 times. I candidly may not have seen Snow White since I was a small child. So I have a full notebook of notes. This is a movie that was came out in 1937, which is bananas. And I hope you know film history because I have a lot of like animation questions, but great movie. Can't wait to translate it to 2020 terms because
do I know film history? So I went to the University of Miami and studied film and economics. So I know everything about film history. Snow White is the first animated movie made by Walt Disney. In feature film. I know he had like Steamboat Willie and all of that stuff, but this is the first feature film. This is the one that started it all. It's on AFI's top 100 list, which is why I watched it. So there was a period of time. So everybody get this in your minds, right? I graduated from college in 2014. I don't have a job lined up. I pretty much did nothing throughout college, didn't really know where I was going. So what I decided to do as a film major was sit down and watch every movie on AFI, American Film Institute's top 100 movies from 2007. It was their 10-year anniversary. And so Snow White was on that list. And Snow White was a movie that I hadn't seen since I was such a young child. That was like, all right, I have to sit down and I have to watch it. That was my whole goal. Even if I had seen a movie, if I didn't remember it, I wanted to sit down and I wanted to watch it. So as a 22-year-old who just graduated from college, was unemployed, living in his parents' house in the winter of 2014, this was right before Will and I started doing the actual podcast, I sat down and I watched Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, made sure my parents were at work at that time. It was before my sister came back for her winter break because I wasn't going to let anybody know how much I was enjoying it. But this movie's awesome. The movie's great. I love it. It's one of my favorite Disney movies. I think it's really, really good. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. We can do this now, even though I give you 10 a month. Love Jay Milligan. You're all welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If you have an idea for a show you want us to watch or a Disney movie, we'll take your opinion.
We will never, ever, ever complain about getting $4.99 during an episode. But that's my story essentially about watching Snow White. And then I watched it again today, actually, just like as a refresher. It's definitely one of the best of the old ones. With Disney Plus, my girlfriend and I have been rolling through a lot of the older Disney movies. And this is definitely one of the better ones from the early era. It's got the catchier songs. It's got the really fun characters. It's got the really, really 2020 storyline of men save woman. Woman does house chores. Woman does all that. Right? I mean, that's 2020.
Well, it's awesome because the men are out working and she gets kicked out of her house because is it a stepmother or stepsister? My mom's
It's her stepmother. It's her stepmother.
Okay, so her stepmother is mad because she's hotter than her. And so she tries to kill
Fairer than her, not hotter. Well, this is 1937.
Okay, so we'll do 2020. So thicker with 3 C's than her. So she sends her out of the house. And so she finds this empty house and decides to clean it because that's what I would do. But that's neither here nor there. The men come home. She cooks for them. She makes them wash their hands. There are a lot of COVID references in this movie. My God, this is a perfect time to watch it. And then as soon as the men leave, she dies. And then the only way she can come back to life is because of a man. And it's really the most relatable thing I've ever watched.
I love it. I mean, but look, this is the classic. This is really the ultimate classic in terms of what the fairy tale story is, though. And so, like, this is the one, like, it's funny because now we look back and it seems so ridiculous. Like, there was a time that this is what people were sitting down to watch and like, wow, and like when you start watching the newer ones like Tangled, Moana, Frozen, like they're just not like this at all. But when you think about the classic fairy tale story, this Cinderella, whatever, I mean, it's like straight out of like Romeo and Juliet, except mainly from the female point of view. And instead of like all the behind the scenes stuff, but with him singing under the balcony, he has a really like very 1930s voice as well. I don't know if I was really feeling it at all, but you know, it was there.
I mean, he was objectively a cutie. I mean, if you want me to like power rank like men, I'm happy to do that, but maybe that might have to be a whole other podcast. But I will say his character development is weak. He's hot in the beginning and he comes in the last 7 minutes. I feel like his pacing is not great. I feel like I never got to know him well.
No, and I think that was the big problem here. And then as they start moving on, we get to know them a little bit better. If you remember in Cinderella, which obviously this one isn't about, but we do start to hear about, we get like a little bit more from his point of view and his father's point of view and things like that. So yeah, this is a very but then again, we couldn't have too much time with the prince because we had to give our 7 princes so much time, which, you know, with the 7 dwarves, like, you couldn't have it just be like, oh, let's cut to the prince who's doing something. We also have the huntsman who might be my favorite character in Disney movie history because he's literally in 3 seconds of it and then is gone and never comes back again. And I think it's fascinating because an entire live action series has been spun off of Snow White and the Huntsman. And the Huntsman in this first movie is in 3.5 minutes of the entire hour and 24-minute movie.
Oh, maybe we should watch Snow White and the Huntsman. That I didn't.
We shouldn't actually. It's pretty terrible.
It's that bad.
I hate it. I think it's terrible.
I mean, he's honestly probably the hero, because if he kills her, then the movie's 20 minutes long. So
Yeah.
MVP of this movie, The Huntsman. Let's do MVP, LVP for all of these.
Yeah, we should. And I think he's easily the MVP. I always go with my LVP is Bashful, because he really doesn't have a purpose in this movie. He has the one moment where he turns red and it's cute, but then at the same time, I'm like, out of all the 7 dwarves, like, what do we need Bashful for? Like, at least Doc slurs his words or whatever. I don't really understand why he does, but
impediment or his
Yeah, I know, and I don't know what they're going for.
On how you take it.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going for with it. So I don't know. I can't get a read for it, but I think the MVP is definitely the Huntsman, because he literally is about to stab her, which this is one of the darker Disney movies too.
Oh yeah.
Like really dark.
Box?
Thankfully, it's just a pig's heart, and thankfully they don't show it, because I don't know how kids who are being introduced to Disney right now would be feeling about going over and throwing on Snow White and seeing a heart beating, but it's about stabbing her and poisoning her and the sleepy death and all of these fun things. I mean, this is one of the darker ones for sure.
Dark. And when she runs, or when the huntsman tells her to run off, and she's got that like quick forest scene, has shades of Stranger Things. There's a lot of trees. It's dark. It's pretty scary. And yeah, I was watching that, and I don't know, maybe I'm too 2020, but I was like, man, what age did I watch this? Maybe it didn't like connect, because I'm not like, oh, right, she's gonna carve the heart out of this dead body and put
that would be crazy. I mean, that would be a hell of a twist. That's
but
for
she
sure.
did and it was very intense when it's like the animals are running towards the dwarves and she's leaning towards the apple, and it's a great like cut back and forth. She bites the apple, but you never actually see it. You just see her hand on the ground. The apple rolls out. I thought that was a very tasteful touch.
I'm going to go through some comments here, because I think they're really good. First, Jordan Alford, God, Snow White and the Huntsman is horrific. Love that.
Spencer Peterson, we are going to read your comment out loud.
I don't think we're going to read his comment out loud. Spencer Peterson, we appreciate the money, but I don't know if I'm allowed to read this one out. We're trying to be family friendly here.
We're literally doing a Disney princess rewatch.
Yes.
And I just said I wouldn't have my kids watch it because Snow White dies.
Yes. So we're being
interested in that. I think there are other websites that you
I probably have a couple of my friends who might be able to give you a recap on that exact movie.
They're going to be a $100 patron.
Danny to Disney and Beyond, here is my favorite dopey quote. I think that's a great quote. That's my favorite as well.
He's got a great quote, Dad.
Yeah, we got Jordan Alford. Lots of murder in the early Disney movies. Yes, there is. And Gamer Girl with the best one here. Darker. You guys haven't seen Black Cauldron, Hunchback, or Pinocchio. Actually,
dark.
Pinocchio is brutal. And me and my girlfriend just rewatched Hunchback. Low key might be one of my top 5 Disney movies of all time, which is going to blow people's minds because it is so dark. It's so dark, but it's so good.
I haven't watched that one in a while, but Pinocchio is such a dark one.
Yes. And I'm also going to throw this out there for anybody who has been paying attention in the chat. We're trying to keep this as family friendly as possible. And also, I went to Miami, and yes, of course I am familiar, because Florida State's people couldn't stay on the football team because they were so obsessed with this woman. So yeah.
Wait, she was
that's who it was. Yeah.
Oh my God, she really took off.
Yeah, she really grew. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be moving away from here. But
this were Disney animated children's films, and we're going to stick to it. We gave you guys your 5 minutes of fame, and now we're done. But anyway, so what I think is funny though is out of all this movie, we have like all these little happy moments, all these little scary moments, but like for the most part, it's like more of like musical and all of that. Alexa, I know you've been to Disney World, and for anybody who hasn't been to Disney World, it's the same ride in Disneyland. The Snow White Scary Adventures is one of the most terrifying rides ever, and it's so funny to me that that's what they pulled from this movie. Yeah, they could have. I feel like they could have picked "Hi Ho, Hi Ho, It's Off to Work We Go," and it could have been a really cute like intro to roller coasters.
And think about like all the other. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting because all of those little rides that they have, all those little story time rides, is like Pinocchio, scary. Literally, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, you end up in hell at the end of it. And then like you have Peter Pan, which is so happy and like, oh, we're just gonna sing and go over everything. And then you have Snow White's, which is like horrifying. Like at one point, the little witch just turns around and is like staring at you, and it's like a loud noise, and it's completely black in there. It's amazing.
It is. And Snow White is like, it's not like the movie is not scary, but the witch is scary looking.
Yeah,
Like she's
terrible.
pretty scary, but it's more like it's not violent. It's just dark. Like she like is trying to kill this innocent little girl and tries to make her ugly by putting her in rags, and it doesn't work because that's how that works.
That's not how. Believe it or not, you can still be good looking even if you're not dressed in rags.
Exactly. And her first love, he loved her when she was wearing rags, so he doesn't care if she's dead or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, pretty convenient to your point that you texted me earlier, Phil. Pretty convenient that the only way she can come back to life is by her first love kissing her. I'm curious if the stepmother thought that went through.
I don't think so. And I also thought it was very convenient too, that not just that, but also that like the dwarves didn't bury her, and that whatever this poison apple was did not make her body decay in any way, shape, or form. So not to get too dark here, but it really worked out in the favor of the dwarves and of her. Because her body didn't decay. Because I always like the image of like they put up the title card at the end and it's like, it's been so long. And like the prince just walks in and kisses her. And I'm like, man, I worked in a funeral home for a summer. And like, I'll be honest. I mean, bodies don't look great after a couple months or whatever. And granted, I didn't see an actual body after a couple months, which was nice. But Alexa, her text was, also, wasn't there was just like a 3 minutes of what was your exact text to me when we said this? You were just like, yeah, especially after like 3 minutes of him hollering or something like that. Like, that's all.
What did I say? Here, fill the dead air quick.
Okay, I'll fill the dead air quick. I love all the people who are in the comments right now being like, hey, we want all these other movies. I mean, some of them we're going to be talking about, some of them we aren't going to be talking about. So I love it.
Certainly aren't. Yeah, she had a hot date with this guy. Yeah. And she's cleaning, which happens to be a theme, but I guess at that time women didn't do anything other than that and cook. But she's at the well and he just like comes over to the well. And I guess that's fine. Phil made a really good point that dating in the 1930s was a little different than now. If that happened right now, I'd probably like elbow the guy. Well, but I don't know. She fell in love with him, and it was a good day. It's very Romeo and Juliet, to your point.
I told Alexa that if you sing to somebody in this way back in the 30s, you essentially were already at the point of having grandchildren. Yeah. Because that's just how fast. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure when my grandparents were 4 years old, I guess, or 5 years old when this movie came out, I'm sure that they were like, wow, that's what it's going to be like when I grow up, when they were 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, I could definitely, it's funny though how these date, because even as we get newer and newer, they start to get a little bit more like, they try to be more realistic, and then you get like a Disney movie here and there that doesn't even like try, which like at the end of the day, it's a kid's movie. What makes it fun is how fast it moves. Like,
I mean, I love Little Mermaid, and that would be the most unrealistic movie out there.
Also the one with probably the best, as the kids would say it, bops. Yeah, that's a Kids Bop reference. That as the best bops out of all of them for sure. We'll get to that though.
I think slap. I think that's what
the slap. My girlfriend says the word slap all the time, and I'm like, that is just stop.
I love
like,
that.
It's brutal.
Those beans, they slapped.
Oh, they slapped. It's so stupid sounding.
I mean, to go back to my character development comment, I think Grumpy had some really good character development, and Snow White, to her credit, doesn't let up. She doesn't let one bad day rule her, and she ends up she tries to make Grumpy his own personal pie, and I'd be pumped if someone did that for me.
Yeah, I know. So I also like how the witch just happens to show up while she's making pies, and it's like, are you making pies? It's like, well, yeah.
Like, did you know men love apple pie?
Yeah, I love how that was a stereotype. Can we? So I know that a lot of people like nowadays, and Caitlin Mink, I'm going to get to your comment because it's fantastic, but I know that nowadays people are very concerned with like how women were portrayed back in the day and all of that. And like, like, oh, they were the housemaid, or, oh, they were just looking like they needed a man to save them and all that. But I'm really bothered by this stereotype that men like apple pie that much. Like, because
sexist.
Like, where did that come from? And also, like, what was she saying? Like boysenberries or something like that? Like the berry pie that she was gooseberry. That's what it was. Like, nobody's eating a gooseberry pie. Like, let's be real. Also,
where do you get a gooseberry?
Tell me what a gooseberry. To me, it sounds like it's goose shit. I'm gonna be completely honest.
I had a boysenberry pie once, and that was in Idaho, and it was very far away. I mean, I feel like apple pie pumpkin pie is my favorite, but apple pie is a very close second. But I feel like that's more of an American thing rather than a man thing.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm still bothered. Okay,
You should be. Oh
I'm
God!
triggered.
Wait until they talk about gingers in
I
Moana.
All of them, all of them. Well, let's do Caitlin Minks, and then I want to talk about the dwarfs. And I know that we're saying dwarves a lot. Also, like the terminology for this movie, like 100%. I know we've been sitting here saying this a lot, but also it's the terminology being used in this movie.
We need to just put on all of these videos. We need to just put a tag that is like we are only referencing.
Yes, because for our next one, and maybe this could be our lead in for our next one, there is a scene that is so unbelievably tasteless.
Yeah,
unbelievably tasteless. So anyway, but Caitlin,
I actually think Caitlin Mink is the one who came up with this idea. So
I do think it was her idea. So thank you, Caitlin. To anybody who's hating this with their life, blame Caitlin. That's her name right there. Go find her on YouTube. Send her a message about how she ruined everybody's life. But also, Caitlin's a $20 patron, so please don't send Caitlin anything negative. But this is a great fun fact. My favorite Snow White fact is that it premiered at Radio City. It was so scary, kids peed their pants and had to replace all the seats.
That's wild. Radio City Music Hall is huge.
Yeah. Well, this movie was, I mean, this had a huge premiere right before Christmas, December 21st. I'm remembering that off the top of my head. Really huge, like premiere. I mean, this was the first Disney movie. This was huge. And think about what it sparked, you know, like that's just really cool. It's almost like Walt Disney called his shot. Like he made this movie and was like, this is going to be big. We're doing it. Like we're going on. It made $8 million. And I'm pretty sure that if you adjusted it for the time period, it was like it was the highest grossing movie at the time. And obviously Gone with the Wind came 2 years later and blew it out of the water. But I still think it's like one of the 25 or 30 greatest grossing films in the history of film, adjusted for inflation, which is really insane.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's a great fact, Caitlin. I don't know how you knew that. I was looking up, it was you, Caitlin Mink. Shout out to you. Yeah. I was looking up Snow White facts because I want to try to find like one fun fact for every movie we did. I could not find that. Upsettingly, that was not on all the weird BuzzFeed articles I stumbled upon. But what I did learn is that the, I guess, voice actress who played the evil stepmother, she used her regular voice when she was voicing the stepmother. And when she was voicing the old lady, all she did was take out her dentures, and she
love that. And you know what? My grandmother is the exact same way. I have an Italian grandmother. She takes out her dentures. She sounds exactly like the old witch in this movie.
It's perfect. That method actors here, I tell you.
Absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, no, I love these little fun facts with like the older movies and stuff like that. Especially like I know this is a Disney thing, but anybody who's like a huge film fan, something similar to that. If you ever watched The Exorcist, Linda Blair couldn't do a lot of the dialogue for her scenes because she was so young and they didn't want her saying the words that she was saying. So the lady who played the demon's voice literally was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and had never smoked before in her life and was just doing it to get a raspy voice. Insane stuff what people used to do back in the old day, as Ethan Zahn would say.
I will never see The Exorcist, but I think that's a really great fact.
It's fun, and that's a great movie. You're missing out. It's so much fun.
Phil, who would you give the LVP to? And I feel like the person who dies can't be the LVP. Like I
gave it to Sneeze or Bashful. I think let's talk about the Seven Dwarves and each one.
Let's talk about the Seven Dwarves because I think Happy is a little useless.
Happy, yeah, what's funny about Happy is he looks so much like Doc that I almost feel like the animators didn't realize half the time that Happy and Doc weren't the same person, because really they do have a very similar personality, except
glasses.
Doc is the leader and Doc is like pulling them along, and then Happy's kind of like, I'm just Happy, and like we're like, dope. Like there's not much personality to Happy or Bashful, so I could see the argument for either one.
Yeah, I think I like Bashful because, well, one, his name's a little different, and maybe we can talk about it this way. But Doc, I understand that he's like the head of the group, but Doc is very jarring against some of these names.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely jarring. And then Dopey. So it's like everybody always remembers, I feel like, Doc, Bashful, and Dopey because it's easy. And then you have Grumpy. And then it's always like, well, what are the other ones? We got Sneezy, Sleepy.
Sleepy's a little weak.
Yeah, Sleepy's a little, because Sleepy's not doing anything any of the movie. He's not even there. He's just sleeping the entire time. So yeah.
In Sleepy's bed or Happy's bed?
She sleeps in all the beds, doesn't she? She sleeps like across 4 of them.
Well, I guess they're all smaller than her. Yes.
Yeah, so she has to put them because she thinks they're children. And so like what I find fascinating about like, you know, it's a 1937 movie. So like I'm a huge believer, and I understand, like we'll talk about in our next episode. There's obviously something very problematic in the movie we're doing, but it's still a fun movie and it's still a classic. I'm big on like separate the time period from everything and like give it more of like the context. And I don't necessarily agree with what HBO is doing right now, where anytime they put out a movie, they're like, we now have to have an intro so that people can understand. It's like, I think people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for.
Right.
So like, you know, like I know right now they just did something for Blazing Saddles. They did because it's unbelievably like what they say in that movie, but it's a great movie. And the point of the movie is to be, you know, just casting a light on how stupid a certain portion of America is. So
Right.
like I find it amazing. Like, can you sit down and can you watch this and can you just say like, yes, his name is Dopey and he doesn't talk? And is that the nicest thing to call somebody? No, it isn't. But also Dopey is like everybody's favorite of them.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, can you just separate these things and like realize that this movie is almost 100 years old? This movie is older than every single politician running for office this year, which is saying a lot.
Which is really hard because not many things are older than them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, to your point, Phil, actually to tie this back to Survivor, pretty much everyone's favorite Survivor, who sadly is no longer with us, had some highly inappropriate and questionable comments. So we all love him still. The point of Disney movies and the point of movies, and now we're going to go into a rabbit hole that I think we weren't really intending to. It is a slice of that time period. And I can't even, like, I watched that and I was just like, this storyline is ridiculous. I never in any way was like, oh, well, Dopey seems not PC anymore. So
yeah,
we want, like, as we go through these, and there are like a couple like questionable things, which I think like will be funny to talk about, but that is the movie. We like this movie. It is literally an American classic.
Yeah.
That will not change.
Yeah, and I know it's always interesting as we move away from things, how they get viewed. But go ahead.
Good. I feel like this could be another good bet. Danny to Disney and Beyond. Could any of the Snow White characters win Survivor? Why don't we just change it to which has like the best likelihood of winning Survivor?
Well, because I was going to say like Grumpy can't win because Grumpy would obviously be the pre-merge boot of Survivor Ghost Island. Oh, yeah. So Grumpy can't win.
I think Snow White's got a good chance because she just takes all these hits and people just like her. Like they literally want her to do well because she's pretty.
I also think that Snow White could win. She had a great social game. She gets dragged to the end by men. And at the end of the day, the man who saves her ends up kind of winning, but really losing, which is essentially Russell Hantz. So Natalie White.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy. But yeah, no, I think Snow White would be good. I also think if you're going for one of the dwarves, I think actually Happy could be your best bet. Really, really underrated. I think Doc would get voted out early because he's too much of a leader.
Yeah.
Happy, I think he'd be the person everybody wants to hang out with. Kind of an underrated edit. Not the most interesting maybe on screen, but is there. Huh?
Oh, there you are. I lost you for a second. I think also, I mean, to really bring this back full circle, I think the Huntsman, that guy makes a huge move, alters the course of the game, flies under the radar, doesn't come back. So maybe he's like gets ghosted at the final three. He gets like the disrespect, but he's like he's probably the robbed goddess because he should have won, but he didn't.
I could see that. I was going to make a really bad comparison because somebody had 8 confessionals in their first episode, then went like 4 episodes without any confessionals and made it to final 3 and ended up losing. But that person is probably not okay to bring up on a podcast. So we're not going to bring him up. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar to that. Comes out hot and then is gone. I mean, another one that's really great is the Magic Mirror. The Magic Mirror, very underrated. It does a really good job of essentially pitting 2 people against each other for no reason. And then just kind of sneaks on by, slides through the rest of the game. No problem.
Yeah. But does throw Snow White under the bus because the mirror is it a male voice or a female voice?
The mirror is definitely a male. If that's a female, wow.
I missed out a little bit. I wasn't, I was more listening to the content. So anyway, so this mirror, he's like, hey, you're not the prettiest. I'm really sorry. And also the person who is prettier than you, here's her address. Like really kind of sells Snow White out. And I feel like that's not fair.
Yeah, no, that's true. But hey, what I do love though is so like speaking of the mirror, if you're looking at what tropes actually get brought up. And it's great because Jordan Alford is reading my mind. He says the magic mirror was better in Shrek. Like, that's the thing, is like this movie actually has like the most references in Shrek. It's the magic mirror. It's also when she's singing to the birds and the bird keeps going like and singing louder. In Shrek, Fiona sings so loud that the bird ends up exploding, and so Fiona just moves on.
Also, Fiona and Prince, is it Florian? There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple. Shrek and Snow White both start with S. Donkey and Huntsman. But yeah, I'm just saying, I think that's one that really needs to be brought up here. I think that's very interesting.
I think so too. So for formal LVP, I might have to. I don't know. I guess I don't want to give it. What did our parameters used to be for LVP?
They couldn't be voted out, so the queen is out because she's dead. She gets crushed by. Not only does she fall off a mountain, she gets struck by lightning. She falls off a mountain and she gets smashed by a rock. That is LVP material. But at the end of the day, I guess we have to
do that. Also, nothing, we don't see it. And I like that the dwarfs didn't kill her. It's kind of like a Batman thing because like it is a children's movie. It is 1937. You can't have the good guys murdering.
And she does come back in Snow White and the Eighth Dwarf.
What's the Eighth Dwarf?
You're going to have to watch the movie. It came out in 1938.
Snow White movies I have to watch now.
No, that's not actually a real movie. That's not a real movie. But yeah, they do. I do like that. There's a lot of really dark things they talk about that they don't end up actually going with. So, just saying. Heart in a Vox, all of that. There's a lot of things that they talk about, but it's not. And Gamer Girl says the lightning struck the cliffside, not her. But she was standing. I'll be honest with you. If you're standing on a cliffside and the cliffside gets struck by lightning, it's probably going to suck for you too.
I'd almost rather get struck by lightning than watch the one thing keeping me alive get struck by lightning. I feel like that's a tough way to go. Just it's so not good either way, but she deserves
fall to your death, which actually falling to your death is a very Disney trope, which we'll talk about as we continue through. We never really see a lot of Disney villains die. We just see them kind of fall to their death.
It's very Game of Thronesy. Like they could come back.
They could come back. And we're just waiting for the Broken Man episode when they're carrying a gigantic log up to, prey or something, just so that they can come back at the end.
Yeah, Bambi's mom is coming back.
Bambi's mom is still alive. I hold out hope, guys. I really do.
We pray every night.
We do.
They do that because they don't want, like I kind of made the Batman joke there, but I think they do that because they don't want like people killed. Like
they don't want violence in their movies. I mean, at the end of the day, like it is still meant for kids, and Walt Disney was always big about making it so that adults would like it too. But they don't want like. We're not going for like a Godfather Sonny getting shot in the toll booth type scene here. So I don't think we really need that. They probably, they want to keep it for its audience, and it does its job. And I love the little storybook that just comes up right after that, where they're like, oh yeah, the queen's dead. Also, like, aren't you so worried about what happened to Snow White? Like she's so hot that they won't even bury her. But we're not going to show you them even like finding her poisoned body. We're just going to be like, she's in the glass coffin. Isn't this great?
And she's so hot that she doesn't even decay. To your point earlier.
Yeah,
the storybook is awesome, and this goes back to the two animation things I had. One was a comment, one was a question. I love that normally when you watch a movie and they're doing like the intro scene and they're driving in the rain or they're like flying over the city, and they're giving the credits that way. They can't do that yet, so they have to do it in the storybook. I was like, why are these opening credits like wasting my time? But I realize it's because they're literally not able to do that.
I will also tell you this, and Alexa, this proves that you don't really watch old movies, so you're gonna have to get better. But so what happened was, up until 1977, almost every single movie that was made had the credits before the movie, because people who worked on the movie wanted their name to be seen. So they used to call it above the line. Now they call it above the line, below the line, meaning like, are you above the line? Do you come in before the credits or before the movie? Or are you below the line?
I feel like they're above the line.
Well, it's interesting because it gets people to sit through it. The problem is it does take about 2 minutes. And in some of the older movies, when you have like a million extras, you watch like Lawrence of Arabia, it's like a 9-minute credit scene at the beginning of the movie. But what's interesting is, do you know, and this is a fun fact for anybody out there, what movie is the first one that was really well known to change this up? And they did it for a very serious purpose in 1977.
I won't know that.
Okay, great. I'm hoping that somebody down here in the chat will.
All right, well, why don't I ask my other question and give people a couple minutes? I don't know if like this is so much of a question, but more of like, I'm just intrigued by this. Like, when did animation I know animation's probably like a moving target on what exactly definition was, but what I noticed about this one, which I think in Peter Pan or whichever the next one is, we won't see it anymore, but it's sort of like, it looks like a painting and the only animated parts are the parts that like they touch.
Yeah,
like a book they're gonna grab.
It's the matte thing. So what the whole hand drawn is really what it is, and that's why The Princess and the Frog ends up being really cool, because it's the first hand drawn Disney movie since, like, I think it was The Lion King or something like that. So Pixar started the whole thing of doing digital animation, and so back then they were doing only the hand drawn, and so they would literally draw a painting and just leave it there, and there you go. We finally got it. Christopher Thompson and Lanny at the same time. Star Wars did it, and the reason, so I'm going to go back to that real quick, and then I'll come back to your drawing thing. But the reason why the credits were at the end in Star Wars rather than the beginning, and why this started a trend, is because Star Wars had the scroll at the beginning that says dun 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 dun, and it comes in over the stars, and there it is, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and then it comes all the words. They wanted to put that in at the beginning. Well, you couldn't have people sit through credits and then also have that. So I don't believe it's the first one. But it's one of the first ones to do it, and it set the trend for pretty much every movie that came in after that.
Well, it's probably the most effective because now that crawl is like iconic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And now everybody is just used to, I mean, you even said, why did they do that at the beginning? Yeah. Everybody's just so used to, now half the time you won't even see the above the line credits until the movie is over, which is always a fun contractual thing. But, that's just something that people would do.
Right. Good. Yeah. This is good. I'm glad that like one person here actually has the answers to the majority of these questions.
Well, this is why I want to do like my top 100 movies. And for anybody who's interested in me possibly doing that is something I've thrown around as possibly doing as part of our Patreon, or something like that. Cause I love talking about movies, and I love especially talking about the movies I like, and Disney movies for the most part I like. So, except for, Home on the Range tater salad is not on our list. Don't worry.
Not happening.
But yeah, I don't know. I like the hand drawing. I actually think the hand drawing looks better sometimes. Because it has like more of like an authentic feel. Like half the time Snow White doesn't even have a neck. But I think that's I think it's more interesting. I think it's more visually appealing. I think sometimes when it comes to the digital animation, it's a little too overblown. Which is a problem.
And Snow White, pretty much like anyone who's not a dwarf, their animations are like different. Like Snow White looks 1930s. The dwarfs don't necessarily look like that.
Yeah.
Like you could have stuck dwarfs in Hercules and I would have bought that.
I agree. And I think that has something to do with like the fact of a bald man with a beard always looks the same.
Good point.
Always looks this like a bald man with a beard.
That as we go through this.
Yeah. And whether it was 1937 or it's 2020, they always look the same. It's unbelievable how that works. So maybe that's why that works. But yeah, Snow White is like, it starts like the evolution of that. And I need to throw this in there for anybody who's a huge fan of Bill Hader. If you have not watched Documentary Now, and so this is a complete side note.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. If you have not watched Documentary Now, it was a show on IFC. It's Bill Hader and Fred Armisen from Portlandia. They mimic documentaries. And Bill Hader does one where it's all about Hollywood. And if you've never like actually worked out in LA or done anything, never been to LA, lived in LA, whatever, which I have, it's such a very, very accurate depiction. But he plays a disgusting producer from like the 1940s, and it's this overblown comedy. And he talks about Snow White in that and how it changed his life. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So go watch. I forget what it's called, but it's the season finale of season 2 of Documentary Now. It's a 2-parter. It'll take 40 minutes of your time. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's great because it actually relates to what we're talking about right now.
Wow. I love Bill Hader. So I actually would watch that.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Any closing arguments? Anything you haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I think this needs to become a staple of the podcast as we move through, because it is probably the one thing that most kids relate to. It's the reason why I walk around my apartment singing "You're Welcome" from Moana. The music, because that's what everybody's come to know. What do we think about the music in this one? Classics. We have Whistle While You Work, Hi Ho, Hi Ho. We have the Wishing Well song, Someday My Prince Will Come, plays about 947 times. What do you think?
I mean, Hi Ho is something that, like, if my mom would say that, like, in the kitchen, my mom would say that just like working around the house or like doing anything. Like, I feel like that's just a normal part of conversation now. I liked it because I think once we get to some other later on movies, it's clear when it's like we are talking versus we are singing. And in this, it really kind of goes in and out. Some of the songs are short. They kind of just weave with the talking. So I think that's something we won't see a lot.
Yeah, I think I think the Whistle While You Work is the jam, is the bop is the slapper of this one. That's my favorite one. I think it's just got the most going for it. I really do like Hi Ho, Hi Ho, though. I think that one works too. Someday My Prince Will Come is not quite to the level of some of the later longing for another person songs. Like, we start to get much better ones as we move through time. I will say Cinderella is not the next one we're doing, so anybody who's wondering, that has probably the most overrated songs out of any Disney movie. Just going to throw that in here now. Cinderella,
for what it's worth, like, I don't mind saying this, we actually cut Cinderella at the last minute. We figured did. I mean, we kind of just both agreed that there's a different movie that we'd prefer to watch. But yeah. I think, like, when you think quintessential Disney princesses, if you're not going to have Cinderella, I think having Snow White is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also, there's a Hi Ho Trap remix that I'm definitely going to listen to after this.
I'm surprised you haven't heard that as a sorority president at the University of Miami. I'm surprised you girls weren't just walking around like to the trap remix of
that was
Hi Ho, Hi Ho
at the SAE house my junior year.
I'm shocked. I am very disappointed.
Parties we used to go to.
Yeah, that's true. That probably did play more than once at one of those. I'm sure that,
honestly.
Wow, I'm gonna drop a name from the past because I don't even care. I'm sure Spundy probably threw that on for no reason.
Yeah. What about the other name?
No, I wouldn't do that to you.
That poor guy's been referenced enough on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, I think in terms of the music, I mean, I think that's something you really need to talk about here for sure. What are people saying that made
I think so too, and I just have to say something I violently disagree with. Zootopia is not overrated.
I love Zootopia.
It's an amazing movie. But if anyone wants us to watch that, I'll watch that on my own time. I'll watch that after this.
Well, who says we don't have that on the list? I'm not spoiling whether we have it on the list or not.
We have a lot of movies we only have 10 movies on this list and a lot to choose from. So maybe I'll do like a poll. Polls wouldn't make sense because then they'd be spoiling it. We'll try to come up with different ways to like tease what we're going to watch. But so our next one, I cannot really speak to the historical significance, but Phil made a reference to a certain Ghost Island pre-merger, Bradley, when discussing Grumpy, I believe it was. And when looking at the description of the main character of this next movie that we're going to watch at some point next week, probably Monday, but TBD. I don't know, the words I'm getting: mischievous, cocky, like doesn't take direction. So also could be Bradley, but next week we're actually going to be watching Peter Pan. What do you think, Phil?
I was saying that it should have been Amber Mariano because Peter Pan doesn't age and neither does Amber Mariano. Exactly. I think that is the perfect thing right there. She just doesn't age. She looked exactly the same in this season as she did back in 2004, which is unbelievable. But yeah, Peter Pan will be a lot of fun, but we are doing these in order. So anybody who's disappointed that we just skipped the likes of Cinderella, Pinocchio, Dumbo, Fantasia, if you like this series a lot, if this series ends up actually being a success, Alexa and I are not opposed to disregarding this series, or I mean, continuing this series, obviously.
Screw our plans.
Yeah, sorry. Will texted me, so I was like, disregard. But
disregard him.
Isn't that amazing how that's the first word that comes to mind as soon as I see a text from him? But we're not opposed to going through these for sure, and doing multiple series runs of these. So let us know. I mean, Alexa and I have always talked about trying to branch out and things like that. This is the first time we've really had a purpose to branching out. And so we wanted to branch out, into something that we figured was a little more universal than Survivor. I mean, everybody likes Disney movies. So spread the word to people. If you enjoyed this, like, let people know that this was fun. Even if you didn't think it was fun, let them know it was fun anyway, and just lie to them. I mean, that's what we do on the internet. So just do it. and let them know that this was a good time, and become patrons. And, if you're a patron in our Facebook group, this idea spawned from being in the Patreon. And so, like, if you're not a patron yet, even if you just donate $1, you get into that group. So you could come into that group, and you could, have your voice be heard. Obviously we want you to be $5, $10, or $20 patron, but, just letting you know that you could have more going on there for you.
We'll take what we can get. And I think the one patron level that we did not really cover is our $10 patrons. What we did last month and what we are going to do this coming month for our $10 patrons is so Celestine Hendrickson, again, she's been referenced twice on this podcast. She sent us sort of a survivor report card. And what we did is last month, we went through the first 20 winners, and you grade them based on different criteria. And we're going to do that for the second half of Survivor winners. For this month, we'll obviously also do a Q&A for our $5 patrons and above. But this one will be kind of interesting because one of the criteria is camp life, which really is not shown, especially in winners past season 17. So Tommy Sheehan is probably going to get an F, but is he the worst winner? Tune in.
No, but he does deserve an F for that.
Deserve an F for camp life because he self-admittedly didn't do shit.
Yes.
Anything.
So. Yeah, Alexa, I already said it, so we're fine. This is obviously a PG-rated Disney podcast. Yeah. But also, if you're looking for other things on how I'm surviving without Survivor, I'm sure if you follow me on Twitter, you're so aggravated right now. But like I said, just retweet it and then mute me. I'm fine with that. I don't care if I lose followers. I really don't, because honestly, I've gained more than what than anything from doing this. And right now I'm working with Russell for his TRHS Sports, building up the betting network over there. And I'm trying to do my own website and everything with my own betting stuff. That is something that I have been doing in a professional sense for the last year and a half. So I'm trying to really blow it up as much as I can, considering right now there is nothing going on. Sports were canceled, at least for where I was supposed to work this upcoming semester. So I'm trying to just, branch out as much as I can and do as much as I can with that. So even if it's annoying you, it's something I have to do. A lot of you have probably followed me for a long time, or probably why is this guy all of a sudden doing this? Knowing that I really don't like to be on social media. Trust me, I don't like myself that much either, but hey, it gets the fans excited, and that's what it's all about. So you can check out my website, betonphilwood.com. You can also go look at some of the stuff over there. I'm hoping to have a little bit more fun with it as we go forward. Once the betting kind of gets under control, I would like to do some top hundreds and things like that, and put some stuff out
there. That's a good website name,
right? Isn't that great? Because everybody should bet on me, and if you're not, that's your problem. But anyway, so go do that, and the website looks good. Alexa will tell you. My girlfriend made it. She did a great job. If you want her to make your website, message me. I'll give you her very fair price.
No, DM Phil's girlfriend directly.
We'll give you the very fair pricing of $30,000 for one website page. But yeah, just, go check that out. And I'm sorry that my Twitter has become that annoying. Jordan Alford, you surprised me with your accuracy, Phil. I haven't been able to tweet out, but right now today, the Celtics saved me. I'm 3-3 right now, which is absolutely fantastic. Because it started out really, really bad. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I am doing really good. So if you guys aren't bettors, or if you are bettors, go check that out. But Alexa, I'm sorry, I promoted myself. You got anything you want to promote yourself about?
Well, the way that we make the most money is by you guys becoming patrons. So go to patreon.com/Survivor Specialist. You can become a $1, $5, $10, or $20 patron. As we mentioned earlier, and as we mentioned in the past 10 minutes, we are doing a lot. We're giving you guys a lot of content. We know Survivor's not back, and we want to use this as an opportunity. And so we love sports. Phil is about to make everybody a ton of money. We love Disney. Everybody loves Disney. Give us more ideas. We have the time. There's no Survivor. We're not watching Big Brother, so don't even suggest it. I would rather look, Phil, I'd rather look at your tweets and look at all the Big Brother tweets. So I'll give you that at the very least. Making money, Big Brother does nothing for me.
Yeah, I've lost myself a lot of followers, but it's probably the people who are more worried about that type of thing. Big Brother, which at the end of the day, here's how I always look at it. If you don't like what somebody's tweeting, mute them. I've muted so many people on Twitter because rather than get in an argument or see stuff that I don't want to see all the time, I'm just goodbye. Don't care.
I always just unfollow people, but maybe
no, I like following them still because it makes me look neutral on every stance in the world. If you're still following somebody, people will be like, wow, he follows him. So obviously, but I think
the opposite. I'm I want this person to know I don't want their opinion in my feed. So.
Well, not for nothing, Alexa. What becomes very difficult, and I don't have like I don't know if there is an unfollow thing, but if you unfollow somebody, they're gonna see they lost one, and they're gonna have to scroll through like their 900 and be like, well, who's missing?
Exactly.
So that's
versus
what's
Instagram
difficult.
is an app that can tell you. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I had something. Anyway, so what we're going to try to do this every Monday night. I'm moving, so I probably can't do next Monday, but we'll figure it out. Again, tell us what you guys want. This has honestly been one of the more fun podcasts I've done in recent memory. So I hope you feel the same way, Phil. So tune in. Next week, we are going to be watching Peter Pan and its very questionable scene. You guys know how to find us on social media. You guys know how to find us on Patreon. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.